got something a little bit different coming to you from the Tease the League boys. Instead of like doing a full power ratings video, we're going to talk about the five teams that are 5-1 right now in the NFL. So we've got the out of the NFC, we've got the 49ers, the Eagles, the Lions. AFC, we've got Chiefs and Dolphins. So Gage, to start off, let me know something that we need to know good and something we need to know bad about this Eagles team.
Yeah, we've got the defending runner-ups here, or no,
Runner up.
yeah, defending runner-ups. Sorry about that. Really good football team here. Still, thought they were going to fall off a little bit, but man, these guys are a really good football team. Super physical. Don't really beat themselves up a lot. Been seeing a little bit more mistakes out of these guys, a little more uncharacteristic turnovers out of these guys. Jalen Hurts making a few plays that kind of scratch your head a little bit. But they have the new offensive coordinator, have the new defensive coordinator. There's obviously going to be some kinks. These guys are still 5-1. These guys are still a powerhouse. But looking at their schedule coming up, these guys have a murderer's row coming up.
Murderers row, man.
They've got 8 weeks of football coming up. Luckily, they get a bye week in between, but I think they play Miami. They play the Cowboys twice. They play the Bills. They play the Chiefs. They play the Seahawks.
And their
Um,
easy game is the team that just took them to OT, the Commanders.
a team that they always struggle with, a team that broke their perfect record last year.
Yeah.
So these guys have a extremely tough schedule coming up. Really good thing they started 5-1. That's really the only negative I have going for these guys, other than some of the communication issues they seem to be having, which I'm sure they'll clean up. A little bit of the injury bug. Luckily, good news on Lane Johnson. I never want to see a guy like that go down, but I think he's going to be okay for this week with the right ankle sprain. But with these guys playing such a high level of football for the last 2 years, really the only thing slowing them down right now is this schedule. If they can, get through this with 10 or 11 wins, it'd be honestly remarkable. I think they're going to struggle a little bit. We haven't really ever seen this team lose multiple games in a row, but I think we could possibly see that just with the stretch that we've got going. So finally get a chance to see these guys maybe face some adversity and see how they do with the new coaching staff with some adversity. So look forward and really watch these Eagles games coming up. They're going to have some really big prime time tough games coming up. So keep an eye on them close. What are you thinking about these guys?
Man, with what you were mentioning, so before I give my thought, just a quick thought on this. With that 8 week stretch, which we do have a bye week in there between the Chiefs and the Cowboys,
Right.
if they're going like around 500 through that stretch, do you think we're gonna at the end be kind of impressed that they made it through?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think if these guys can finish this season with 10 or 11 wins, even being at 5 wins so far, that's going to be enough for them to make the playoffs. That's going to be enough for them to be fighting for a division championship. And that's going to honestly be super impressive playing this number one division winner schedule. Um, and like I said, I mean, this is four of the top five teams in football.
It's
It's really really tough on these guys. I don't know if I've really seen a schedule like this before, but if they can get through this and make the playoffs again this year, it's a really good thing they started this season strong because they're going to need it. And really going to be looking forward to watching a lot of Philadelphia Eagles games coming up because they're going to be good football games.
it's great for us as a fan that they've got a lot of the teams that we're going to talk about in this episode, all that they're going to play. We're really going to get a good sense of whether Philly's going to be able to make another run to the Super Bowl or not. The one quick note I have is it's definitely been interesting watching Brian Johnson this offense run. We're not seeing the creativity out of Steichen. We did finally see a little RPO where we saw a motion out and they picked up a good first down, but I really haven't seen a ton of that like we did last year. Also, brotherly shove. They're doing it better than everybody else,
Yeah.
and everybody else is making it look like not as great of a play.
Yeah, which I'm honestly really happy to see because been hearing a lot of this people wanting that play taken out of the game, which I think is just garbage. I think the Eagles have done an awesome job of developing an identity, something that every team in football tries to do. The Eagles have pretty much came out here and said, "Hey, we're a physical football team, and you're not going to stop us." They have an offensive line that they've built upon. They got a quarterback that benches 500 pounds, and they're not going to get stopped. If they have 4th and 1 or 4th and inches, they're going to push it up the middle and they're going to beat you. The Cowboys tried it last week and it didn't work. It's something that they figured out. It's something that they do extremely well. And I think if the league were to get rid of something like that, it would really, really leave a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I think you'd have to see all the other teams start doing a better job of it, or you would have to see something we don't want to see in the league, see a lot of injuries on that play, because then that would be where they change it. So let's dive into another NFC team here. So the 49ers. The 49ers, once again, like you mentioned, like we'll get to see them play the Eagles. We saw them lose a tough game in Cleveland. Great defense. You want to watch the two best defenses in the league? Go watch that game back. 49ers are absolutely incredible. Shanahan calling plays with all those different guys, run CMC, Debo, IU, Kittle. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And that defense, Fred Warner, if you're watching anybody play linebacker, just watch that guy. Just tune in. That guy's great. Tune in to the D linemen, Hargrave, Bosa, all these guys. Like, they are fantastic.
I legitimately think that they may be the only team in the NFL that's capable of putting a beating on another top 5 team,
Yeah.
like they did with the Cowboys. The Cowboys may not be a top 5 team for some people, but nobody can doubt that that's a good football team. That they came in there and they beat 42-10. I mean, there's not many. We talk about it every single week. This is a one-score league, and especially when you come into these games when it's two dominant football teams, the Cowboys have been whooping people. You know,
Listen, even the biggest Cowboys hater, they're still a top 10 team this year.
Yeah, and the Vikings, the 49ers just made them look like, a JV football team. They were just physically dominant, their speed, the 49ers coaching staff, just every single level of the game, they play extremely well, which is a huge tip of the cap to the Cleveland Browns. Even though McCaffrey goes out, Debo goes out, that defense is still crazy to be able to hold an offense like this down. Brock Purdy gets, um, you see a little bit of his weakness with his guys go out, but that's to be expected.
But then he made the drive when he needed to have it.
Right.
When they were down, he got them down there. And you saw Moody. I think that was his first field goal miss.
Yeah, that was very, very unexpected. A game that their best players go out in, and they're playing probably the best defense in football, and they should have won the football game. They miss a 30-some yard field goal, as time expires in a game that they should be honestly be 6-0. This is a really strong football team. Expect them to be there at the end. It's going to take an A+ all around effort from any team to beat these guys. And like I said, I think they're really the only football team in the league right now that can honestly put a whooping on anybody if they play their best football.
Absolutely agree. Biggest issue for the 49ers going forward is sometimes they feel a little bit snake bitten.
Yeah.
We saw how many injuries they had last year, where even though he's not with the team anymore, Trey Lance goes down. Then Jimmy G goes down. Then Brock Purdy goes down. Then even Johnson goes down. Like, you've seen all those injuries, and then you saw it for their first loss. You saw Trent Williams leave the game for a little bit, came back and finished, thankfully. Saw Run CMC out. You see Debo out. Like, I I sometimes just wonder, and I hope it's not true, because, man, seeing another, like, great, like, Eagles 49ers matchup in the playoffs again, but the 49ers being healthy would be awesome. But speaking of the NFC, maybe we have a new team sneaking in. So, what do you think about this 5-1 brand new Lions?
Yeah, I honestly kind of wish I was a Lions fan right now because
It'd be pretty fun.
just to feel what they're feeling right now. This team has been, I'm 29 years old, and this team has never been good. I've never really, Matt Stafford had a few years we knocked him off as a Cowboy. We knocked him off in the playoff one year. They were a decent football
Got
team.
a little help from McCall.
Got some help. I did. Yeah, we definitely did. But this is just not a team that we've seen do well very often. And man, are they just really, really solid. They're running the football. Of course, David Montgomery broken ribs. That's going to put a hindrance on that. But they're running the football. They're throwing the football. Jared Goff looks outstanding. Some of these guys on defense that they've picked up are just, everything's working well for these guys. Aiden Hutchinson, who I honestly was not very high on out of Michigan, just looks like an absolute boom of a pick.
They've been killing it with the drafts
Yeah.
because you've got Sewell on the offensive line that looks great all the time.
Yes.
Hutchinson on the D line, Jack Campbell, our linebacker, like
Sam Laporta.
Sam Laporta. Oh my goodness, how did I mention him fourth out of that?
Yeah, I mean these guys they're doing everything really well right now. Dan Campbell, another a thing that we mentioned with the Eagles, uh, creating an identity for your football team, something that my Dallas Cowboys are struggling to do right now. The Detroit Lions have an identity. They're another one of these teams that they're not going to take no for an answer. Dan Campbell, I think, had a quote last week that said, "People act like we're the ones being hunted." He said, "You ain't going to have to look very far. We're going to be standing on the front porch waiting for you." They're just a physical team that's ready to punch you in the mouth. And I think with all that being said, as inexperienced as they are, Jared Goff doesn't play that well outdoors. As good as this football team is, with the schedule that they had, which is not very tough, I think they need to win 13, 14 games and go ahead and try to lock up that home field, get that forward field advantage, and I think they'll be really tough. If they have to go somewhere like a Lincoln Financial in the playoffs, I don't love that. But Eagles coming into Ford Field, the Lions are going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, and I like that you do mention the schedule because we're going to talk about a lot of these teams and how they're playing all the other big teams. The Lions, because they did miss the playoffs last year, they had a really nice run toward the end of the year. They don't have a tough route, and also they're going to be the easiest division out of these teams we're talking about.
Yeah, they get the Bears two more times and they get the Vikings two more times.
Yep.
We don't want to overlook the Vikings with as much talent as they had, but that is that's 4 wins right there, just staring them right in the eye, getting them to 9 wins. Right?
And they already put the smack on the Packers, even though the Packers made it look a lot closer than it actually was.
Yeah,
With the Lions, one of the main questions I want to ask you about is should Jared Goff be in the MVP conversation right now?
it has to be, has to be. He's got a career high and QBR. He's got a 105. He's got a career high in completion percentages. He's completing almost 70% of his passes. He's averaging 8 yards an attempt going down the field. I think Dak's only averaging about 5.5 right now. Jared Goff is just playing outstanding football. 11 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He's running the football when they need to. He's not audible and out of these. He's not being the egotistical quarterback that has to throw the ball 50 times. When they're running the ball, they'll run the ball 30 times, and he's not making any mistakes. They're playing extremely good football right now. Jared Goff has to be in the MVP conversations. I'd probably lean Tua just with all of the points they're throwing up.
The
It's
numbers are crazy. I mean, they've had more yards through their first 5 games than the greatest show on turf.
right. So right now, I'm honestly probably leaning Tua, but JG has to be second or third. I mean, this guy is playing lights out. And then as good as their offense is playing, now they have a chance to unlock Gibbs with Monty going out, and they have a chance to unlock Jameson Williams, who had the big 50-yard touchdown last week. So these guys, the potential is crazy with these guys. These are guys we really want to keep an eye on. If they can take advantage of the schedule and they can get a 1 or a 2 seed going into these playoffs, I think they're a really huge contender. If they slip to the 3 or 4 seed, and they may have to take a road route to the through the playoffs. Don't love them as much, but definitely like the way these guys are looking.
Completely agree. Very intrigued since we already talked about how well they've drafted and all these rookies playing really well to see them unlock Gibbs and Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, like would love to root for Detroit in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun seeing the fan base get behind a team that hadn't been really any good. With our next 5-1 team, let's go to the team that is the team that people are going to have to get by in the AFC, the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid, Chris Jones, like they have been a thorn in everybody's side in the AFC, and they will continue to be that.
Yeah, man, I
So,
agree, but I honestly think that the lust is wearing off a little bit on these guys. No Tyreek, obviously, offense is taking a step back, but in that same breath, with the offense taking a step back, that defense is taking a huge step forward.
huge step.
Nick Bolton is outstanding middle linebacker play. They seem like they're always, you expect these last 3 or 4 years, we were always, hammering the over in these Chiefs games and stuff. But these games that the Chiefs are playing are field goal wars these days.
Well, we saw a low scoring game in their first game against the Lions, and that was without Chris Jones.
21-20.
We saw the Jaguars not be able to do anything. I think that came
17-9.
17-9. Yeah. So we've seen some really good play.
Mhm.
And don't sleep now. The Chiefs just got back McCole Hardman to help out that wide receiver room that we're talking about. And I think there's a very high possibility they get Frank Clark now that he was released from Denver. So two of the guys they let go recently, they might get right back to completely be retooled.
Yeah, and I always have a hard time kind of capping the Chiefs. I feel like they're one of the hardest teams in the NFL to bet, just because you never want to bet against them, and they do kind of struggle to cover those big spreads that they get sometimes. But with that being said, this is a team that's gonna be there at the end, and I think, like I said, teams probably aren't quite as scared of the Chiefs as they were at one point. But defense travels now, and they've got a new identity. So, it might not be the 38-35 touchdown win that you seen out of Pat, but they might come in there and beat you, 21-17
Yeah.
because of this tough defense. And anytime Pat has the ball, late game situation, I'm not gonna bet against them.
The other thing too, we talked about the Lions being able to pick up some division wins. The Chiefs having the Broncos and
Yep.
Raiders, who both haven't looked good. And they also get to play the Chargers, and we know Brandon Staley can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory at any moment.
And Jim Victor.
So we, like you said, like they're always good games because Justin Herbert has been really good, and that Chargers team is actually pretty good. They're just coached by Staley, which becomes very interesting to watch. But that's another thing to talk about when these 5-1 teams were, trying to predict who's going to be able to run the table, maybe finish as the top seed. Having a couple easier division games, which are never easy by any means, makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then I want to toss it to you for the last team we're going to talk about, but the most explosive team we're talking about, the other AFC team is 5-1, the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, very, obviously probably the funnest team in the league. But maybe, the second, maybe even first team I'm most worried about here. Just because Tua with the injuries always scares me. And then also that defense is just, it's so right now. I think their red zone defense is not so great. Third down defense, not so great. They're trying to, get past all that with this crazy offense, which it might end up working. But they have a little bit of a gauntlet near the end of the season. They need to go ahead and get their wins now. I think their last three games of the year go Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. So I mean, if they're fighting late and they got to get if they end up needing a win or two in those last three games, it's going to end up being really tough. So that's a team that needs to go ahead and get their wins now. Don't mess around. Don't go sitting, guys. Get their wins now. Try to get through that 10-win mark before the last 3 weeks of the season because, like I said, they have a really tough end of the season. And I just don't know if this style of play that they're doing can hold up. What do you think?
I agree because it's one thing to go down 14-0 to the Panthers. It's another thing if you go down 14-0 to any one of these four teams we've talked about, whether it's Chiefs, 49ers, Lions,
I didn't even
Eagles.
remember that start last week.
Yeah, down 14-0. And once again, that offense just comes through lightning fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing them put up more yards than the greatest show on turf, which is ridiculous. When you're thinking about Warner and Marshall Faulk and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce, and like you think about that as like maybe the greatest offense ever, and you're seeing these guys put up more yards. I'm very concerned with the defense, though. They definitely have to get Chubb, Phillips, and Van Ginkel going to get a couple more sacks, even though there are definitely moments where they do well.
Yeah.
And it's going to be crucial for them that Jalen Ramsey comes back at 100%.
Right.
Right now, whoever's playing opposite of Xavier Howard is just getting picked on. They're just going, well, Xavier Howard's on one field side, and this other side, they can't guard anybody. We're going that way. And I think for the Dolphins, you mentioned that schedule and mentioned getting some wins before that tough end.
Yeah.
Like the Lions, when you're a team that hasn't really done it, it's very important to have that home field.
Right.
It's a lot tougher for your first time to, maybe break through and make an AFC championship game or even the Super Bowl. It's a lot easier to do it with home field. So mentioning that, I kind of gave away who I was kind of leaning towards. With the NFC, out of those three teams, who do you think it's most important to get the number one seed?
I don't think they can get the number one seed, but I think it's the most important for Detroit. I think the number one seed is going to end up being San Francisco. I just don't see anybody really getting past them. I think Detroit can sneak a number two seed. I think that would really help them. That would obviously give them
Be
home field
huge.
up until the NFC Championship if they could get there. Um, I think those two teams are really going to be tough to beat. I think the Lions' schedule really favors them. I'm a little worried about the Eagles just because of their schedule. I'm obviously a hater as a Cowboys fan. I didn't think they were going to be this good this year anyway. Um, but they've been obviously super impressive. But you just can't look at these next 8 weeks and say that they're going to, easily go 5-3 or 5-2. You just
Yeah,
can't say that. They're going to have a lot of tough games. They're going to have a lot of close battles. Hopefully, they get through there healthy. I'm worried about them the most. I think the Lions need the home field most, and then I would think that my favorite coming out of the NFC is definitely still San Francisco.
completely agree. I definitely think San Fran gets it, but I think it would be great for the Lions, like you were mentioning when we were talking about them. Like that really needs to be something they shoot for, even though you can only go game by game.
Right.
Because all those questions about Jared Goff playing outdoors
Oh
don't
yeah.
matter if you're the number one seed.
Right.
Um, I think I'm gonna. I think your answer would probably be similar to mine here, but AFC we've only got two. Do you think it's more important for the Chiefs to get that number one seed, or do you think it's more important for the Dolphins?
Definitely more important for Miami. And once again, I don't think they get it. Uh, Honestly, they could. The AFC is really a toss up, but I really just don't know if I can see this style of play continuing. I think the Bills probably end up getting the one seed here, even though they're 4-2 right now. I think the Bills probably find a way to fight through and get that. Bills or KC. I look for Miami to drop off a little bit, and then, like I said, there at the end of the year, Ravens, Cowboys, Bills. That's going to be tough. They might be the one seed going into weeks 15, but those last three games, I feel like somebody probably overtakes them. And I think they can go into somewhere and get a win on the road. So it's not as detrimental for them, but being in that warm city, Miami,
Yeah.
going somewhere like a Buffalo or like a Cincinnati if they were to make it.
Where you saw last year going in, they played really well against Buffalo, but going in and playing in snow, a lot different than having that
Yeah,
South Florida weather,
yeah,
especially when you've got the fastest team in the NFL,
right.
being able to just run and use that speed.
So definitely think it's very crucial for them to get home field. If they do get home field, you better watch out. Um, that offense is crazy, but like I said, I don't expect that type of play to last for 18 weeks. And I also expect KC to probably step it up a little bit. So I think Miami needs to get the home field. Detroit needs to get the home field. But I do look at my favorites as probably still, San Francisco in the NFC and then KC or Buffalo in the AFC.
And then one last thing to wrap it up, I'm going to put both of us on the spot and on camera, recorded. So out of these five teams, rank who you think is most likely at this moment with what you've seen and how it projects forward to if it was one of these five teams to win the Super Bowl. I'm going 49ers
Yeah,
as my one.
yeah. Probably gonna go
I
49ers one.
I still so I know this is probably going to be a little bit different than your answer. I'm going Eagles as my two. I'm a little bit biased because Jalen Hurts in that squad. I had a preseason Super Bowl bet on them last year.
Yeah,
They made it all the way there. I'm going with my three. I'm going with the Chiefs. With my four, I'm actually going with the Lions. And my five, I'm going to put the Dolphins. And that is because I think the Bills do win that division.
yeah.
So I'd almost like substitute in the Bills for the Dolphins. What's the rest of how does your list round out?
I think very similar. It's a little bit of a weird spot for me. I'd probably go Niners, then probably Chiefs, then probably Eagles, then you know Probably Dolphins then Lions, just because of the inexperience of the Lions really scares me. I love that football team, to be honest. But my favorites to win the Super Bowl aren't even in this category. I honestly really like the Bills and I really like the Ravens. Um, I
Love those two teams as well.
love those two teams to try to make a deep run. But if I had to take this list, I'm taking the Niners and I'm probably taking the Chiefs. But I look for some of these teams that are in the 4-2, 3-3 pack to really tighten this thing up too.
And also, I mean, if this video gets some little bit of love, maybe you see us dive into those 4-2 teams because we've got a couple good ones. We've got the two you've mentioned. We've got your boys in there, your Cowboys. And with the NFC being, in my eyes, just a four-team race, the three teams we mentioned today plus the Cowboys, it would be an interesting discussion. And that AFC North is going to produce some good teams, so that's why the Ravens one is a very interesting discussion because the Browns have been great, and we also know the Bengals are a lot better than they've shown.
The AFC North is almost an anomaly because those teams aren't going to get the one seed. It's going to
Yeah.
be impossible for those guys to get a one or a two seed just because of how strong that division is. But at the same time, you're going to be playing a three or a four seed that's battle tested among probably the best division in football, and you're going to be playing a team that's a lot better than their records talking about. Whether it's going to be Cleveland, Cincinnati, or Baltimore. Any of those three teams, if you have to play them in the playoffs, you're going to have a tough time, whether they've won 9 or 10 games
I mean,
compared to
see
the.
all three of them in there.
Yeah,
And there's going to be a lot of teams that are very happy, that if they're not the one seed, they don't have to go into Baltimore or go into Cleveland or go into Cincy. There's not really; those aren't places you want to go play if you need to win.
no, definitely not. Those defenses, are really barking, and that's just the toughest division in football.
But yeah, it's fun to always kind of wrap up these kind of tiers and go through these different teams that we've seen a third of the way through the season. And let us know. I mean, if you watch this and check it out, let us know what you think about each team. Let us know which one you might think is best suited to go on a run and win the Super Bowl. Or if there's any glaring weaknesses that we kind of miss going through these teams.
Yes, sir.
Any final thoughts?
No, looking forward. It's been an awesome start to the season. Looking forward to keeping the pod going, and really would like some feedback from you guys if you're tuning in, and let us know what you'd like to see on the pod or what you'd like to hear. And I look forward to talking to you guys again soon, man.
Oh, and also, sorry about last week. We weren't here, and the NFL went crazy. We
Strep throat gang.
we saw the 49ers and the Eagles lose and some other crazy results. So Tease the League misses 1 week, and the NFL just goes to chaos. But we're back now, so we might have a little bit more streak.